Imagine you're holding your phone right now, scrolling through this video, and every tap, every swipe, every pixel lighting up your screen. It's all powered by a tiny chip smaller than your fingernail. Now ask yourself this. What if the country that controls those chips isn't the one you think it is? What if China, not the US, just pulled a move so slick it could leave Silicon Valley in the dust? That's where we're at today, February 23, 2025. And the tech world's trembling because Beijing's latest play isn't just a flex. It's a warning shot aimed straight at America's heart. Let's rewind the clock because this didn't happen overnight. This is a story decades in the making, a slow burn that's about to erupt. Cast your mind back to the 1980s, Ronald. Reagan's in the White House, disco's fading out, and the US is the undisputed king of tech. Intel's churning out processors like they're printing money, IBM's building the bones of modern computing, and Silicon Valley's a golden land of innovation. Across the Pacific, China's a different story. They're an industrial backwater, cranking out cheap toys and textiles. A nation still shaking off Mao's shadow. Nobody, and I mean nobody, saw them as a threat. Fast forward to the 90s. America's riding high. The internet's born. Microsoft's king. And chips are the oil of the new economy. China's waking up, though. Deng Xiaoping's reforms kick in. Factories sprout like weeds. And they're not just making trinkets anymore. They're assembling the world's electronics. By 2000, they're the factory floor for your Nokia flip phone. But the real power, that's still in California. Designing the chips, writing the code. China's just the hired help, or so we thought. Let's jump to 2015, because this is where the plot thickens. Xi Jinping steps up and drops a bomb. Made in China, 2025. It's not a catchy slogan, it's a battle plan. 10 industries, from semiconductors to AI to robotics. And Beijing's dumping billions to own them all. Washington chuckles. Good luck catching up, they say. But China's not laughing. They're dead serious. Think about this. Back then, the US controlled 90% of the world's chip design. Taiwan and South Korea built them. And China, they were stuck buying. Fast forward to 2019, and the game changes. Trump's trade war's in full swing. Tariffs are flying, and then Huawei gets hit. US bans their tech, cuts off their chip supply, says they're a security risk. China doesn't blink. They grit their teeth and pivot. Stockpiles of Nvidia chips start piling up in Shenzhen. Engineers get poached from TSMC with double salaries. And a quiet war begins. Beijing's goal, self-reliance. Kick out American tech, build their own, and never look back. By 2023, Huawei's back with a 7-nanometer chip made by SMIC, their homegrown giant. Experts gasp. How'd they do that under sanctions? Simple. They're relentless, stockpiled gear, cracked workarounds, and turned US pressure into fuel. Meanwhile, America's tightening the noose, blacklisting more firms, begging allies like the Netherlands to block ASML's chip-making machines from China. Does it work? Not really. China's too big, too driven. Now zoom to today, February 2025. And here's where it gets wild. China's not just catching up. They're swinging for the fences. First punch. DeepSeek R1, an AI model launched last month that's so cheap and fast it's already topping US app charts. Built from scratch, no Western tech, and it's got Silicon Valley sweating. Second punch. They've slammed the brakes on rare earth exports like gallium and germanium, the lifeblood of chips. Last year, they supplied 98% of the world's gallium. Now it's locked down. US factories are scrambling. No backup plan. Third punch. They're choking tech outflows. Foxconn, Apple's go-to, just got new rules. Slowing equipment and know-how from leaving China. Why now? Revenge. December 2024. The US slapped fresh bans on chip gear, and Trump's team's floating 60% tariffs. China said, enough. This isn't random. It's a chess move decades in the works. Let's peel this back. Post 1-2. America built a tech empire. The Cold War cemented it, beat the Soviets with brains and bucks. China watched, learned. By the 80s, they're copying Walkmans. By the 90s, assembling PCs, 2010 hits, and they're not just workers, they're players. Huawei's 5G spooks the West, gets banned, but they don't fold. 2020, COVID hits. Supply chains crack, and China sees the opening. U.S. firms like Intel lean on global chains. China builds their own. Made in China. 2025 wasn't a pipe dream. It was a promise. SMIC's eyeing 5-nanometer chips by summer. Huawei's phones run Harmony OS. No Google needed. Meanwhile, Silicon Valley's reeling. Nvidia's stock crashed $300 billion in January when DeepSeek dropped. Broadcom's hurting. Intel's begging for subsidies. How'd we get here? Complacency. America outsourced. Underestimated. Thought sanctions would crush China. They didn't. Beijing's got cash. 1.4 billion people. And a government that moves fast. Think about the stakes. Chips aren't just for phones. They're in F-35s. Tesla's your smart fridge. U.S. military's freaking out. Pentagon leaks this week say AI-driven drones are stalled, all because of supply snags. Back in the 80s, tech won wars. Now it might lose them. China's not just making gadgets. They're building leverage. Xi's meeting with tech bosses this month, February 2025, wasn't a pep talk. It was a directive. No sanctions will stop us. And they're proving it. Foxconn's trapped, Apple's wobbling, and U.S. consumers get ready for pricier iPhones. Let's rewind deeper. 1978, Deng opens China up. They're poor but hungry. 1990s, they're the world's sweatshop. 2000s, they're copying. 2010s, they're innovating. 2020s, they're dominating. Made in China 2025 aimed for 70% self-sufficiency in tech by now. They're close. Huawei's Mate 60 in 2023 was a wake-up call. A chip made under sanctions. DeepSeek R1's the next slap. An AI that's not just competing, it's humiliating. Built on open-source guts and SMIC chips, it's dirt cheap and lightning fast. U.S. firms can't match the price. Meanwhile, China's rare earth bands a gut punch. Gallium's in every chip. Germanium's in lasers. U.S. stockpiles barely a month. Factories in Ohio and Texas are sounding alarms. China's not just flexing. They're rewriting the rules. Let's talk history again. Post 9/11. America's distracted. Wars in Iraq. Afghanistan. China's plotting. 2008 crash hits. U.S. stumbles. China rises. 2018. Trump's tariffs kick off the trade war, meant to kneecap China. It backfires. Beijing invests, innovates, waits. Now, they're striking. U.S. sanctions pushed Delete A, purge American tech, Harmony OS, SMIC chips. They're nearly there. Allies waver. ASML's losing billions. Japan's torn. China bets on that split, and it's paying off. So what's the move? Ban rare metals, flood AI, choke manufacturing. Silicon Valley's not ready. Washington's scrambling. Back in 2000, China challenging U.S. tech was a joke. Today, it's reality. They've got the cash, the will, the plan. How'd they do it? State muscle, raw ambition, and a world that slept on them. Post-Wu, U.S. built the modern world. China's betting they can rebuild it. Think about the 90s. America's untouchable. China's reverse engineering VCRs. 2010. They're cloning iPhones. 2025. They're outpacing us. DeepSeek's a symbol, not just tech. National pride. Foxconn's rules tighten. Apple's chains strained. U.S. consumer feels it soon. Higher costs. Slower tech. Military's worse. Pentagon's drones need chips. China's ban stalls them. AI weapons. China's testing. Per leaks. Cold War 2.0, but different. America's not broke, just slow. China's not weak, just smart. Made in China 2025's on track. 70% self-reliance. They're at 65%. Climbing. Huawei's trifold phone this month. $3,500. A middle finger to sanctions. SMIC's 5-nanometer chips loom. U.S. leads shrinking. 1990s. We owned chips. 2025. We're begging. China's moves a triple threat. AI, metals, manufacturing, Silicon Valley's golden age. Fading. China's tech age. Dawning. Let's zoom out. Post-Mao. China's dirt poor. Deng says get rich. They do. 2000s. They're the world's workshop. 2010s. They're the rival. 2020s. They're the threat. She's not bluffing. February 5th. Beijing. He tells Ma Lei Wang, go big. They are. DeepSeek's stock soared. Nvidia's crashed. Gallium's gone. U.S. plants stall. Foxconn's locked. Apple's sweating. America's tech crown. Slipping. China's not catching up. They're aiming to pass. How'd we miss this? Arrogance. Thought tariffs would win. Thought bans would work. They didn't. China's here, and they're not playing. Stay tuned, because this is just the start. So, you've seen how this tech war's been simmering for decades. But now it's boiling over. China's not just knocking on the U.S. tech industry's door. They're kicking it down, and the numbers hitting the table this month, February 2025, are jaw-dropping. Let's start with the big one. DeepSeek R1, China's AI bombshell that dropped in January. It's not just some chatbot. It's a sledgehammer. Built from scratch with homegrown chips. It's cheaper than anything Silicon Valley's churning out. Think pennies on the dollar compared to OpenAI's GPT-4o, and it's already snagged the top spot on Apple's US App Store charts. How's that for a wake-up call? Analysts pegged its development cost at under $50 million. Peanuts next to the $1 billion plus US firms sink into AI. Beijing's playing a different game. Lean and mean. And it's working. Stocks tell the story. Nvidia shed nearly $300 billion in market cap in late January when DeepSeek hit. Broadcom's down 15% this month. And Intel, they're bleeding. Begging for $8.5 billion in CHIPS Act cash just to stay afloat. Meanwhile, China's tech stocks are roaring. The CSI 300 Tech Index jumped 20% since DeepSeek's debut. A bull market fueled by raw optimism. Here's the kicker. This isn't luck, it's strategy. Xi Jinping's meeting with heavy hitters like Alibaba's Jack Ma and Xiaomi's Lei Jun on February 5th wasn't a casual chat. It was a war council. He told them, show your talent, and pumped state cash into a $47.5 billion semiconductor fund. Think about that. $47.5 billion, dwarfing the U.S.'s $39 billion CHIPS Act allocation. And China's not slowing down. SMIC, their chip champ, is cranking out 7-nanometer chips now, eyeing 5-nanometer by summer, all while U.S. sanctions try to choke them. Spoiler: it's not working. Let's talk supply chains, because this is where it gets ugly. Foxconn, the Taiwanese giant that builds your iPhones, just got slammed with new Chinese restrictions. Equipment exports stalled. Tech know-how locked down. Why? Beijing's done sharing. Apple's feeling the heat. Production lines in Zhengzhou are bottlenecked, and insiders say the iPhone 16e, launched this week, might miss its US mid-market targets because of it. Shocking stat. China handles 60% of global rare earth mining, 80% of refining, and now they've banned exports of gallium and germanium. Last year, they supplied 98% of the world's gallium, used in every chip from your phone to fighter jets. U.S. firms. They've got maybe a month's stockpile. Factories in Ohio and Arizona are sounding alarms, halting production lines. Meanwhile, China's hoarding, stockpiling for their own push. Let's zoom in on DeepSeek, because this AI is a game changer. Launched January 15, 2025. It's built on Symic's downgraded 7nm chips, open source code, and a ruthless focus on cost. Nature reports it's targeting low-income markets, undercutting U.S. tech by 70%. Imagine this: a chatbot that runs a small business in Nairobi for less than a Netflix subscription. That's China's play. Flood the globe with cheap, good enough tech. U.S. firms can't compete on price. They're too fat, too slow. Here's a revelation. Baidu, China's search king, just went open source this week, inspired by DeepSeek's success. February 18th, they announced their next chatbot's code will be public. A middle finger to Google's walled garden. China's betting on volume, not margins. Meanwhile, Huawei's laughing. Their trifold Mate XT hit global markets February 18th, $30,500 a pop. A symbolic, we don't need you to U.S. curbs. It's not perfect, app constraints linger, but it's selling. Let's talk military, because this isn't just about phones. Pentagon leaks this week, February 20th, say China's testing AI-driven weapons. Think drones that outsmart anything in DARPA's pipeline. Why? Those banned metals, galliums in lasers, germaniums in infrared. U.S. drones. Stalled. Defense contractors like Lockheed are scrambling. But chips are the bottleneck. China's fund. It's not just for phones. It's for power. Here's a stat to chew on. U.S. chip designs down from 95% of China's supply in 2020 to under 50% now. SMIC's catching up, fast. Huawei's Mate 60 in 2023 was a warning. DeepSeek's the follow-through. Let's flip the lens. Silicon Valley's in panic mode. Google's energy chief told CNBC February 12th, they're in a capacity crisis, racing China on AI, but choking on power. DeepSeek triggered a sell-off in U.S. power stocks, investors betting China's efficiency wins. Shocking. Not really. China's been plotting this. Made in China 2025 aimed for 70% tech self-reliance. They're at 65% and climbing. U.S. response. Tariffs. Trump's team floated 25% on chips and cars February 18th. But experts warn it'll backfire, hiking costs stateside. China's not sweating. They've got the minerals, the cash, the will. Let's talk perspective. This isn't just economics. U.S. State Department's been screaming about China's AI, repression, misinformation, security risks. Valid? Sure. But China's flipping it, saying America's the bully, sanctions are the real weapon, Global South's listening, DeepSeek's a Trojan horse, cheap tech for poor nations, buying loyalty, U.S. allies. Wobbly. Netherlands and Japan enforce chip bans, but ASML's losing $2 billion a year. Tokyo's hedging. China's cracking that wall. Here's the midway gut punch. This is bigger than you think. Stick around, because the real twist, the one that'll make your head spin, is still coming. It's not just chips or AI, it's the whole damn board. China's not playing catch-up. They're rewriting the rules, and the U.S. might not have an answer. Don't touch that back button, because what's next will blow this wide open. You've seen the build-up, the punches China's throwing, but now it's time to face the fallout. And trust me, this is where it gets insane. Everything we've unpacked, the AI surge, the mineral bans, the supply chain squeeze, it's all leading to a twist so wild it'll leave you staring at your screen. Here's the bombshell. China didn't just ban gallium and germanium exports this month. They've quietly flipped the switch on a $10 billion rare earth stockpile, built over the last decade, and they're using it to corner the market. Think about that. While the U.S. was slapping sanctions, China was hoarding. Last year, they controlled 98% of global gallium, 94% of germanium, and now they've locked it down. Effective February 1st, 2025, U.S. firms like Intel and Qualcomm, they're scrambling. Stockpiles are at 30 days max. Bloomberg reported February 19th that chip plants in Texas and Ohio are halting shifts, some indefinitely. Meanwhile, China's $47.5 billion semiconductor fund isn't just pumping out chips, it's fueling a war machine. Leaked U.S. intelligence, dropped by Axios February 21st, says China's testing AI-driven hypersonic drones, powered by those banned metals. Speed? Mach 10. Range? Trans-Pacific. The Pentagon's got nothing close, and their next-gen projects are stalled, all because of this chokehold. Let's tie it back. DeepSeek R1's not just an App Store flex, it's a distraction. While you're downloading it, China's building weapons that could outsmart anything in NATO's arsenal. Shocking stat. The U.S. imports 80% of its rare earths from China, and now the tap's off. Domestic mines in California and Nevada, years from scaling. Here's the gut punch. China's not stopping. February 20th, SMIC announced a breakthrough. 5-nanometer chips in trial production, 6 months ahead of schedule. Reuters says they're using retooled ASML gear, banned by U.S. curbs but already in country. Huawei's next phone, teased this week, runs on it. Harmony OS, no U.S. tech, $1,800, and it's pre-ordered out in Asia. Silicon Valley's reeling. Nvidia's CEO Jensen Huang told CNBC February 22nd, they're blindsided. Stocks down another 10%. Apple's iPhone 16e, launched February 17th, is delayed in half the U.S. Foxconn's bottlenecked. Consumers? You're paying more. Goldman Sachs predicts a 15% price hike on tech by July. Let's zoom out. This is bigger than chips. China's splitting the tech world in two. U.S. led West versus a China-centric bloc. India's wobbling, buying. DeepSeek for rural schools. Africa's hooked 5G towers from Huawei. Nigeria. Here's the twist. It's not just economics, it's existential. Those AI weapons, U.S. Cyber Command leaked February 22nd. They've detected Chinese neural nets probing Pentagon firewalls. Success rate? 40%. DARPA's counter AI. Months behind. China's not just threatening Silicon Valley, they're threatening supremacy. Let's crunch numbers. U.S. tech exports to China, $150 billion in 2024, projected 2025, $90 billion. China's exports to the U.S., $500 billion, barely dented. Trade deficits ballooning. Meanwhile, their funds churning. SMIC's output doubled since 2023, 200,000 wafers monthly. TSMC's still ahead, but the gap's shrinking. Foxconn's rules. Apple's lost 20% capacity. Insiders say they're begging Beijing for relief. No dice. Here's a revelation. China's not alone. Russia's in. Trading oil for chips. Iran's buying DeepSeek for drones. Bloomberg says a tech axis is forming. And the U.S. is late to the party. Let's talk fallout. Jobs. Ohio's chip plants laid off 1,500 this week. Wall Street's panicking. Dow's down 5% since the ban. Consumers? Your next laptop's delayed. Military. F-35 upgrades are paused. China's winning not by fighting, but by outmaneuvering. Xi's February 5th war cry to tech bosses. Delivered. DeepSeek's a symbol. SMIC's a weapon. The ban's a checkmate. U.S. response. Scattered. Trump's team wants 60% tariffs. But Goldman warns it'll spike inflation 3%. Congress is split. CHIPS Act 2.0's stalled. China's betting on chaos. Here's the shocker. They've been ready. Since 2015, Made in China 2025 planned this. 70%. Self-reliance. They're at 68%. Per Xinhua, U.S. thought sanctions would crush them. They didn't. Huawei's back, Semik's rolling, DeepSeek's thriving. Meanwhile, allies crack. ASML's CEO told Reuters February 20th they're suffocating under U.S. rules. $3 billion lost. Japan's Sony is hedging, eyeing Chinese chips. China's not just surviving, they're thriving. Let's wrap this. The U.S. tech industry's on the ropes. Chips stalled, AI outpaced, prices spiking. China's not catching up. They're pulling ahead. Silicon Valley's golden era fading. Beijing's tech empire rising. Here's the insight. This isn't random. Decades of grit, cash, and vision. America slept. China worked. Now, the world's splitting. Two internets, two AI spheres, two powers. Where's it going? U.S. fights back. But how? Tariffs, risky. Innovation, slow. Alliance, fractured. China's move isn't a threat. It's a reality. Your phone, your car, your security. It's all at stake. So what's your take? Is this the end of America's tech reign? Or can Silicon Valley claw back? Hit the comments, because this isn't over. It's just starting.